Good morning, everybody. We're going to let a few more people jump on. It looks like we've got several attendees. My name is Rebecca Selby. I am the marketing manager here at Optus. We'll get started in just a second. I'm seeing that attendee count come up because we just started broadcasting. Let everybody get to be able to view the screen, and we'll get started. Okay, it looks like we've got a lot of people on this morning. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, my name is Rebecca Selby. I'm the marketing manager here at Optus, and we have an exciting new product offering from NEC that we want to talk to you about today. We've got several people from NEC on, as well as Mark Duckworth, Optus's founder and chief customer officer. So if Mark, you'd like to welcome everybody, and then we'll get started.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rebecca. I'd like to take just a really quick second to welcome all our resellers onto this call. We're incredibly excited to partner with NEC to bring you guys this amazing backup as a service solution. You know, as we've committed this year, one of our key initiatives is to continue to bring more cloud-based technologies to you to be able to resell to your customers. So obviously this is a new technology we're offering. We're early with NEC in this partnership as they're just now rolling it out to the channel globally. And what I would encourage all of you is to look at this. This is a game changer. So, if you're not offering backup as a service today to your customers, this is a fantastic value add and a way to add additional value to these relationships. If you have another solution, you need to look really hard at this. This is a unique technology that's different from anything else in the marketplace today. Will give you a competitive advantage against the others. Mike's going to go through that. So anyway, incredibly excited to have you guys join us. Our team will be following up with each of you after this to talk more about it, talk about how we get you signed up, as well as schedule any one-on-ones with the NEC team. And Mike's got several team members on the line that will help us with this to really make sure you understand the technology, how you sell it, how you're successful with it. So with that, thank you so much for joining. Let me turn it back over to Mike and Rebecca.
Very good. Mark, thanks for the introduction, and Rebecca, thanks for the introduction. I'm Mike Mitch. I'm the Director for UNIVERGE Blue Sales, so that's exclusively cloud services for NEC here in North America. And I've been doing cloud sales for almost the last decade, primarily on the direct side. And what we're really doing right now is working with the channel partners to bring that forward to the market over the last year. And we're really excited to be able to work with Optus as one of our strategic partners to do that, because it allows us to go ahead and address a very large base. So as of May 1st, last Friday, we posted our sales and marketing bulletin announcing the cloud services for what we call UNIVERGE Blue Backup and UNIVERGE Blue Recover. As I mentioned, these are services that we have been offering for almost the last decade, primarily in the direct side through an affiliation with Iron Mountain. And over the last year, what we've had to do is to take those services and channelize them. We've worked very strategically, and I'll share with you some of Mark's other resellers that have early board ramped with us on these services. And we've actually used that model and the on-ramp model for them as a way to make it easy for you to digest these services and present the services to the channel and your customers. So you can see the announcement. Again, Mark, thanks for those opening comments, and thanks for the support early on with your team and putting everything in place to be able to enable this. Also, I know that we've got Mark Hibner. He's our VP for all of the channel sales, and he's been very much so involved in launching our new generation UNIVERGE Blue family of cloud services through the announcement that we had in early April. So we are rebranding, and one of the things that we kind of wanted to make sure of is that all of the branding of NEC's cloud services, including backup and recover, are under a consistent brand, under a consistent look and feel, and make it very easy for the channel to digest those. So this is the first version of that rebranding. So it's not a new offering, We've been doing this offering. We've got a number of customers and references, but this is really, again, the first time of bringing it forward in a new rebranded approach for the channel. So as I had mentioned, our goal is really to introduce you to the backup and recovery services for the channel. Two important things to remember as we go through this presentation. As I mentioned, we've been doing this for over nearly a decade, and this is the first time that we're bringing it to the channel. So it's a well-baked solution. It meets the compliance and everything else that's in play. And the second thing to think about is that this is a service. It's not an appliance. It's not an offering that we see, and you'll see some of the competitors that we're running up against here. This is a full appliance. If something goes wrong, it's a full service. It's not just an appliance. If something goes wrong, we're taking proactive action. We're going ahead and providing the reports. The customer is not on their own. So there's a big difference there between this is a service, ensuring that it's got all of the pieces in place that are needed to provide a managed service, as opposed to just an appliance that many customers are offering. So we're going to cover quickly on this call just a little bit of an overview on why to build a case for an action plan for backup as a service. We're going to talk about that. We'll position YNEC as a service and what our offering is with the backup and the recovery suite. We'll target where and how to sell that. We've got a couple, as I mentioned, early customer references, reseller references with Optus early on. We'll go over what we call the customer ownership model so that you understand how this operates, how you do the configuring, and how you quote it. And then we'll wrap this up with next steps on the contract amendment, how to go to start here in NEC anytime, and then how do you run a campaign. We've got all of the tools and pieces in place set in the Anytime system for you to be able to execute that. So we'll cover all of this today on the agenda. We have a couple of slots for question and answer. And Rebecca, I think, can you just take a moment real quick to jump back in and then explain to the team how they could ask questions and how we can answer them?
Sure, I can. There is a chat window down at the bottom of your screen. You can either send us a chat, and the panelists are monitoring that. So we'll try to get you an answer on that, as well as you can do a question and answer. There's also that option. So either one of those we're monitoring throughout the webinar, and we will stop for those, read them out loud, get some answers. If there's something that we can't answer today, we're going to look at all those chats and questions and answers, and we will follow up with you after the webinar.
Good. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, so let's just talk about the state of the market. If it was 5 years ago, we'd be talking to you about how backup addresses unplanned downtime associated with, a server or storage or a network failure or something like that. But today, what's happening, and it's happening rapidly, is that the driving issue is shifting to security and ransomware. So it's really important to have a comprehensive backup solution. And it's kind of amazing to me to see how fast a lot of startup companies that are really not technology companies, right? They're not anywhere near the, like an NEC, that have gone ahead and have put together an appliance with some open source software and are basically jumping into the market really quick. So it's just a testimony that the market and the need for backup and some sort of recovery is there. So we're starting to see attacks and insider threat increasing. It's becoming a significant impact to business with these things called internal actors. There was a recent study that was just done by Verizon that was just released about a month ago about data breaches. And we've actually made that study available for download off of the Anytime portal. But the one area that's really concerning is the internal actors. That there's very recently, a much larger percentage of potentially disgruntled employees in these organizations are taking action against them. So the important part is to have a third party, someone that's outside that can do that and can provide all of the redundant locations, the right protocols, the encryption to make sure that not only are they secure, but they're also compliant. It's So getting an action plan in place right now, and the time for this is really good to approach the market. As I mentioned, and this is the fear, uncertainty, doubt slide, but it's happening at a faster rate. There were 10 new ransomware types of viruses that were deployed last year. They're getting more sophisticated, and it's really important that you have a system that's being backed up and it's constantly monitored. Just having something that's backing up and not being monitoring is not going to protect you. Now, if you look at the market, other than ransomware, there's still a lot of opportunity out there. This study that we did with 1,000 clients that have an IT organization in place yielded some really interesting results. One is that, and this is completely separate from ransomware, of the IT accounts that were contacted, and you asked them, nearly half of the IT managers confirmed they don't have a comprehensive backup solution in place. And even more alarming is that the managers that had a solution in place, a large percentage of them couldn't restore the data due to a combination of complexity. And we're seeing this happen as we talk to the channel partners, that you've got one type of an appliance with another backup solution, and they don't exactly work together, which makes it complex and costly and difficult to troubleshoot. So now if you think about it from the standpoint of what's going on with ransomware, a high percentage of the clients felt that they had, even the ones that did have a backup solution in place, that they could recover their data. But because it wasn't a comprehensive solution, even though they had a backup solution, more than a little bit less than half of them were not able to get all of their data back from that standpoint. So that is the state of the market right now. And it's one of the opportunities for our channel partners to go in and position a comprehensive backup solution to your clients. So I'm going to stop for just a second, and we're going to see if there's any questions that may have come in so we can try to answer them in real time. Rebecca, did you see anything there?
I don't see any right now. You got a nice shout out from Infinity Network Solutions saying that Michael said that he worked with you and he was very impressed with the service and attention. So that's a shout out to you, Mike. And
oh, that's great. All right, I got a great logo for you guys in there too. Thank you so much from Beyond. You guys are great. So great partner, great early adopter. So thank you so much.
I've actually got two that are coming, two questions now. What is ransomware? Can you further define what you're talking about when you say ransomware?
Yeah, it's kind of like someone changed the keys to your car in the driveway, and for you to get the keys back, you got to pay for them. It's kind of a simple way, and instead of the car, it's your data, it's your company's data. And what's happened, and we've actually seen this, I actually wrote a blog with one of our customers that was hit with ransomware several years ago, and we co-authored, we helped them. They host with us now, we do their backup. But what really is kind of fueled it is this whole thing with Bitcoin and the ability to not trace money. So the whole Bitcoin thing, and that's what they did. They actually spent $100,000 and paid $100,000 in Bitcoin, which you couldn't trace it. So there was no way to figure it out, who actually put the keys in there and changed it. But they encrypted. They got into, through various ways, a perpetrator, whether it could be internal, and that's the concern about that 38%, is that the 38% is starting to, that's creeping up. Before it was people coming in from the outside, and they were coming in through phishing. What I mean by phishing is someone in the organization clicked on an email link, and it ran a little job, and then someone else clicked on another one and it ran a little job, and they kind of behind the scenes build they take over your systems and then essentially encrypt your data so you can't access it. Pictures are gone, your invoices are gone, everything that you have to run the organization basically goes away. So, and they can get in either traditionally through the outside, but now more so it's coming in through internal people from that standpoint. Anyway, I hope I answered that question.
Got another one about how do attackers get the data? So is it a data storm, or do they siphon the data off the servers?
So that's a good question. That's another type of, so ransomware is typically not associated with a breach. In this type of a scenario, this is a situation where someone, and you've heard this like with Marriott, where the customer base of information, possibly credit card information, personal data, et cetera, that you may have stored with Marriott if you went to a Marriott hotel, that they were able to get it out, and then they're actually selling that data. That's how they're monetizing it. So that happens in a breach kind of scenario. That is also called out in the Verizon report, which you can find more information on. It's more sophisticated. It takes a lot more work because you actually have to pull the data out. In a ransomware type of a situation, they encrypt the data so you can't use it. They don't care about the data. They just care about getting the money to get you access to it. In a breach situation, they're pulling it out, and then they're either using it against the company or as a way to sell the data on the market and to try to do some other damage that way.
I think that's all we've got right now.
Okay, that's good. Good questions.
Yeah. Awesome.
So let's look at why consider it as a service. What we did is we went and started a study last year with a firm called Technology Business Research. We explained to them what we wanted to do. And we said, hey, listen, we traditionally sell product. We need to understand how do we help our sales team and our sales channel members understand how to sell a service. So what was interesting is that traditionally we would be selling from the bottom here of selling, we've got the best servers, the best storage, the best product areas. And here you buy it and you're on your own. But when you're selling a managed service, you have to sell from what are their concern areas. And it was completely inverted in that even though the product and all of the items that are down at the bottom are a substantial cost to the organization, from a perception standpoint, it's the smallest concern. So that's important for us to understand is that we're not selling from a product standpoint. We're selling from a perception and what's their concern. And the concerns are unreliable backups. As you saw, a large percentage of these people aren't doing backups of the ones they're not sure if they're being monitored. They're not sure if their people are staffed and trained all the way, because backups quite frequently are the last thing they think about. They also get frustrated, right? That sometimes they don't have the ability to do a self-service on a restoration and then to be able to get it back because they've got 3 different backup systems that are kind of pushed together or hacked together that were sold in different ways in different states. And it's very difficult and complicated. And then also the manpower, the shifting. We've noticed pretty repeatedly that the people that are managing the IT organization are taking the frontline calls. The laptop's not working. This application isn't working. Maybe the firewall isn't working. They're not staying trained on the operational knowledge that's needed to maintain a compliant backup environment. And then also it's very expensive for them and it's very timely if they have to troubleshoot it. So it's the cost to manage. So we've done a white paper on this with TBR. It's one of the sales tools that's in place to help identify how to sell the product from the solution and the service from the standpoint of as a managed service as opposed to a product. So that's one of the things that is a sales tool that's available in our Anytime portal. But then let's shift over to, okay, now that you want to do a service, we understand the service, that's the first part of it. Okay, I need to sell it as a service. Well, then why NEC? Well, it's kind of what we like to do, and it narrows the field down. And all of you, we deeply appreciate your allegiance to NEC and being a reseller through Optus. That's one of the reasons why we're coming to you first. We're not going to the general reseller market because you guys are so, you're really committed to us and we really appreciate that. But as you know, we build our own platforms, and we build our HydraStore platform, which are firms like the United States Patent and Trade Office. They back up all of the US patents to HydraStore. Firms like Visa, Global Payments, AT&T, they use this platform for backing up their own enterprise storage. So if people like that can use it and we can build it ourselves, right, we're going to use it ourselves to deliver it as a service. So it narrows the field down really quick from all of the other appliance vendors that are going out and buying a server or trying to put something together, and they're not a technology company. So we like to do that. It brings it in that, hey, you're working with a technology organization and they're running it on their award-winning storage, which is HydroStore. We also place it in highly regulated and compliant data centers known for storing data. Ironically enough, tapes continue to grow. We're producing more and more data, and Iron Mountain is the #1 repository for tape and storing people's data. So that was one of the reasons why we actually got started with Iron Mountain, is that United States Patent and Trade is in Iron Mountain for storing all their data. They're in the underground facility, and Iron Mountain approached us and said, hey, can you deliver the same type of service that US Patent and Trade is using on your platform for other customers? And that's what we had been doing for the last almost decade. Now we're bringing that out and making that available for the channel. We use industry-leading backup software as a service. This is really important to understand that we're using Commvault. I'll talk about Commvault in a little bit. We're not selling a license. We're selling it as a service. And there's only a handful of organizations that have the ability and are trained enough to be able to offer it as a service. It is the #1 backup software, and it allows us to address virtually any backup requirement and avoid these issues of having the complexity. So we can displace and provide a consolidated backup software platform as a service that addresses any backup requirement. And we've got multiple customers that'll stand up and also do this, from carriers to government integrators to SAP accounts that host and do supporting for firms like Home Depot. So we've got trusted customers and that we can stand up, and we've got case references that we can use to help you in your selling. So what is the offering? It's a complete backup solution that addresses all backup requirements. We're using, as I mentioned, Commvault as a service, so we can essentially go after any type of a backup requirement and make it simple to back up, and then make sure that the applications, as well as the clients, the server applications and the client applications, are all backed up in a compliant manner. I get a lot of questions about Office 365 and Share. And if you're familiar with that, that's one of our suite services for clients, as well as the backup that Microsoft provides. And it's important to understand that they're not doing a managed service. You are still doing that yourself. You just have cloud storage. It's not being done. There's no reports. There's no service level. There's no detection of any kind of ransomware or anything else that's going on from that standpoint. Those types of pieces on the server platform we're delivering as part of the service. We're doing it on top of our own infrastructure. We also offer the platform for self-service options. I'll give you a preview of the portal that the customers and you as the resellers get access to, and you can see your customers from that. We provide the reports on a daily basis and the compliance standards that are needed for the company to show to their CSO, their Chief Security Officer, or the CFO, this is my SOC report. So we provide those reports out of the system. Again, you don't get that with the other solutions. And then optionally, or depending upon the level that the customer needs, we're providing the disaster recovery component for this also. So we can restore their environment remotely if it's on a best effort, which we see in the SMB market. That's a really strong interest. A lot of customers like, hey, you got it, you can back it up for me. I don't have to pay for it until then. And then we can do it on a best effort. Or if they want it within a certain recovery point objective or recovery time objective within 4 hours, then we have to have a reservation. So there's going to be some charge for that on the monthly service, because we're guaranteeing to have that available within that time period. But a lot of the customers in the SMB are really comfortable just that we'll do it on a best effort basis, and there's no charge until that happens. So let's just look at the suite real quick. What we have is we've got geographically dispersed data centers located in Northern Virginia, which is the heart of the internet. 80% of the worldwide traffic flows through that location. It's kind of interesting. And we also have what we like to call the zombie apocalypse, the underground data center in Western Pennsylvania with Iron Mountain. That's where we started. And what we offer is if the customer has more than 10 terabytes of storage, we start to talk with them about putting an on-premise physical appliance. We'll take an NEC server, NEC built, NEC configured. We'll load the software. We'll talk to the customer. We'll ship it out. The customer, 9 out of 10 times, can install it on their own. It's very simple. And what that appliance does is once it's installed, we establish connectivity with it, and then we load agents on the devices, whether it be the laptops that are in place, the servers that are in place, and as you'll see in a moment, even Office 365 from that standpoint outside, we can bring that in. So again, you've got a consolidated environment. So for accounts that have more than 10 terabytes of storage, we can do that. In certain instances, for accounts that have less than 10 terabytes, and we did this with BCI, with one of their customers, we will load the appliance as a software component on the customer's existing infrastructure. So we don't have to ship anything there. We can download the appliance, we can run it in a virtual machine. They can use their existing storage as a way to be able to back up in the same kind of fashion too. Now there's 2 benefits to having this type of an environment in place. The first one is that you're able to get deduplication across all of the agents. So if you've got 100 desktops or 10 desktops, they all have the same operating system image on it. We're not copying 100 operating systems. We're building a pointer that says, hey, it's the same image, we only need one, which is important. That deduplication element is a very, very important element because it allows the customer to transfer less data to us. It also allows the customer to pay for less data, and I'll get into that in just a minute. The last option here is that we also offer if the customer is highly dispersed and they have only a couple of units. They may have, and we just went through this with another quote recently with another one of Optus's resellers with Infinity Networks. What they did is they had Office 365, a lot of laptops that were sitting out there, and what they wanted to do is to be able to just back those up over the network. Now, in the past, firms like Barracuda, Datto, today they still want to push an appliance, a physical appliance on. What's changed over the last 4 to 5 years is that network bandwidth has gone up in an order of magnitude. I'm lucky enough, even in my home, to have a 1 gig upload download pipe fiber for $79 a month. I can transfer a lot of data. I don't have to have that on-premise appliance if I don't need it. So if the clients have that, they're riding that wave of more bandwidth in place, the need for an appliance starts to go away. Then last but not least here is if the customer's got tape. Remember I mentioned Iron Mountain still stores a lot of those tapes. If you're selling to enterprise accounts and they have that Iron Mountain truck showing up, we have a way to be able to displace the shuttle costs by saying, hey, we'll push it to tape over the network. Or we'll restore it from tape, and you can build an ROI model to save money on the tape option. And last but not least is the recovery, right? The recover option for disaster recovery. We can offer the best effort or with a restore guarantee, and that kind of wraps it up from there. I want to make sure that I'm staying on time. It looks like we still got about 30 minutes. So I'm going to start to move into kind of the benefits and to recap, what the service is for your selling points. So remember, it's a managed service. It's supported by staff that are continually monitoring the backup jobs, right? They're not, waiting for a support call because the backup didn't work or the customer didn't, they had a problem when they wanted to try to get it. So this is a proactive offering. That's kind of one of the things that's really important, and we're doing it as a service. We're offering various levels of encryption, and there's 2 levels of encryption. One is through the transfer, and there's various levels that we'll support if the customer wants it, and at rest. That's important. So after we get it, then we're furthermore doing additional encryption. This is really important for compliance purposes. You have to show that in the reports that that's being done. The next thing is on the compression and deduplication. As I mentioned, when we transfer, we deduplicate and we compress it. So the bandwidth is not as important. So for instance, on the first load of a laptop, it may take a little bit of time, but then we're only sending the differences, only the incremental. The second thing is in the storage, you only pay for what the deduplicated amount is off-prem. You don't have to worry about what the logical amount is, which is really important. And that's a game that the cloud storage providers play because they don't want to let you know what they're doing on the backside. They want to let you know what you think you have. We're very transparent about that. On an email notifications, we're providing them every day. We're confirming that the backup jobs were done, so they know that that's being done. We're also, in the event that we detect an anomaly, one of the reasons why we like working with Commvault is they are the #1 software provider for backups. Their agents are constantly being updated and looking for things like the ransomware kind of thing that goes on, or somebody doing something that it doesn't look right. So we actually use their anomaly detection, and if we see it, we'll tell the customer, hey, something's going on. We're not saying that we're protecting them, but we'll let them know. So that's a real important value add that kind of is a good comfort factor. You don't get that out of the appliances and the other systems that are out there. Also, if a job didn't work, we're going to call the customer, ask them, hey, did your firewall go down? Did something happen? So we're being proactive without being requested to us. So notifications are really important. As I mentioned, we're providing data verification. So at the time that we back up the data, another important best practice for compliance purposes is to verify what you backed up. So a lot of people say, I backed the data up, but then you have to go back, did you verify what you backed up was good? It's kind of interesting to me that on the tape business with Iron Mountain, if we do a restore from a tape that Iron Mountain has in their data center, they want us to do a verification of it first. We say, well, why would you do that? You have it on the tape. And they say that the customer gave us the tape. We don't know if they put any data on there. And I'm like, so verification is kind of really important. We're doing both of those. We're making sure that at the time we back it up, that it's verified, that there's real data there, and we provide that as a part of the report. The other thing that we're also doing, which is a value-added service, is compliance search. So if it's a legal requirement, you need to go back 7 years and to look for an email, as an option, we can provide the compliance capability out of this so that they're not using third-party tools to go to archive. So it's a total solution from that standpoint, including the compliance search. You don't get that with a lot of the appliances that are out there. And then last but not least is on the backup portal. These 5 areas kind of are the hit points for us. The ability that they can perform their own restoration, all the reporting and the industry-specific dashboards that go along with it. Working with a couple of smaller clinics, they're like, my CFO just wants to see the healthcare pieces that I'm being compliant for that specific dashboard. That's what's nice about working with Commvault is they have all those dashboards pre-configured and available for just about virtually any industry. So it's an extremely rich backup portal that you have access to as part of the service. All right, and what I'd like to do is a comprehensive backup, just kind of give you a little idea here. A lot of the customers a lot of these appliances only do what I call sledgehammer backups. You just get the entire system backed up. And it's okay if I was loading software or I'm in a disaster recovery, I need to bring the system back up. But it doesn't help you with a file that you need from 7 years ago. You don't want to go back and restore a whole server from 7 years ago that you took a snapshot of just to be able to get a file out of it that went to there. So it's another one of the reasons why we selected Commvault is they're the leader in the software. They address virtually every single backup scenario that you can imagine. So we can very easily address the whole case and present it as a single backup solution, including hybrid cloud, where they're running in the Office 365 environment or in other different areas. That's not something you see with other, a lot of the appliance vendors. And you'll notice that the appliance vendors don't show up as a leader in any of the Commvault. The market's growing so fast that they're able to do it just through sheer sales force. So high differentiators here. There's a lot of different, this is an eye chart, but if you start to get into the interest and they want to know, right, you're working, the areas that we'd like to take the high ground are is that, they know NEC. We've got a full suite of services underneath the UNIVERGE Blue Suite. So we can do everything, including, the UCAS, the CCAS, all of the other pieces there. We're using the best backup software in the industry. It comes from AT&T Bell Labs. It's a public company. It's been recognized for 8 years as #1. So a lot of these firms can't afford that. And even if the ones they did, they come in and say, wow, you can give it to me as a service. I didn't have to pay all that money for the license of the software. We're providing the largest base of the backup agents. The agents, as I mentioned, are constantly being updated. You don't know what's going on with the competition in these areas. We're very transparent about the data centers. We actually have several accounts, trading firms that we actually do business with. We provide them the access list every month of the people that were in the specific data center area that their equipment is. That is part of the compliance. You can't get that level of detail from a lot of these other companies that are out there. They won't tell you. They won't even tell you where your data is in many instances. As I mentioned, it's as a service, it's industry standard. So what's kind of nice about this is that if you do get an IT administrator, and they could not afford Commvault before, but now we're delivering it as a service for them, they're actually learning how to use it, right? It's adding more value to the IT administrator, learning how to be able to use a very rich platform like this, and we're standing right behind them. You don't get that, right, with the proprietary vendors out there. I mentioned the legal search, the different recovery for disaster, and then the portal. So let's take a look at the portal real quick just to get a little feel. So we have Command Center, and once you go ahead and the contract has been put in place, resellers and end users will be able to access the portal to see your specific information. It's important to know for you as resellers, you'll be able to see the status of all your end users associated with you. End users will only see the information specific to them. And once you're logged in, you're presented with a dashboard. The dashboard shows you, your entire environment. If it's the reseller, you're going to see all the servers, and you can break it down by customer. If you're the end user, is in this situation, you can see they've got 15 servers, 13 VMs, 25 laptops, and there's only one user that has access from that standpoint. You can see the service levels of what's been going on. You can see the prior backups that have been completed through the process. You can also go ahead and you have a lot of flexibility to modify the dashboard. There's self-service, self-training with a guided setup. You have different solutions for different vertical markets that if you want to, you can tweak the dashboard for different vertical markets. You can set the configuration and the thresholds so that you're made aware of the alerts as we are at the same time, or you're not. And we can just contact you from that standpoint. There's the reports, the administration, and a great web console. And again, this is it's a very, very rich backup portal. And it is state of the art. So you can take it as far as you want, but we're there to handhold you through it. Again, you can see the backup landscape, you can see the service level, the performance, and the history that's been done with the platform. So that's just a quick snapshot on what the portal looks like. I'm going to stop because we talked a lot. Any questions at this point?
Yeah, we've got several. First, is the service HIPAA compliant?
Yes, it is HIPAA compliant. So we follow all, and you will see that in the way that we define our contracts. So we've got our contracts defined from that standpoint. One of the reasons we selected Iron Mountain Data Centers was because they store pathology, right? They've got control over all of those pieces. So in the contract, you can see that. We do actually leverage the Iron Mountain BAA, the Business Associate Agreement, and we can bring that to the table to assist you with it from that standpoint, because it's got to start from the physical security standpoint. The other nice thing about it is that Commvault has all of the connections to all of the backup software, like Meditech, like GE, the PAC systems. They have virtually every backup agent that you can imagine. And since they're the number one, they're going to have the agents that are going to allow that to support.
Great. How far in time do they keep backup information?
Good question. It's up to the customer. So that's the bottom line. Our default is that we do it for 30 days, 30 days of incrementals, and 4 full week backups that would happen every Saturday night. So every night we're doing a backup. That's the default. You can adjust it, and the only thing it changes is the amount of data that you store. It's kind of interesting in that initially the curve over 30 days is going to go up pretty quick, and then it's going to start leveling out, right? And it's only going to be the differences. So a lot of customers come to us after they get a feel for it, and they say, hey, can I make that incremental longer? We're like, sure, no problem. So it's really up to the customer. And for the people that really want to go for a long-term retention, we can put it on tape and stick it on a shelf. We are starting to get some customers that are asking just to go to tape for air gapping, which is a little bit different, but that is another one of the things that we're starting to get questions on.
Okay. Does NEC guarantee 100% recovery? If not, what could a customer reasonably expect?
That's a very interesting question. And it's a little bit, so you need to look at the service level agreement that we have in place. We absolutely have a very stringent service level, and we are taking every precaution that we can to be able to do that. So when you say 100%, 100% is one of those things that is, it depends on what you're going to put behind it, right? If it's not 100%, what was your, what's the cost to you? So we've got a very clearly defined service level agreement that is part of the backup as a service appendix, and it puts financial considerations in there if we miss any service level, including 100% from that standpoint. So that we do back it up from that standpoint, and it's in place. So to answer your question, that is part of our service level agreement.
Okay. How big does a company need to be to need backup as a service?
Oh, that's a good question. I think a lot of I think a lot of our resellers through Optus are even great candidates. In fact, we're offering a special promotion to discount it even more to protect your own data. It's very simple to do it. We think that's a great way for you to get familiar with it. So, I mean, literally, we have scaled from 2 employees all the way up to 10,000 using the same software as a SaaS service. So it really, it runs the whole gamut. And that's what's nice, is that it's a lot easier to take an enterprise system that supports a large customer base and bring it down because of the economies of scale than it is to take a small point type of a solution and try to scale it up. So we can virtually address just about any backup scenario. And that's what we've been working on, over the last year, to make sure that we've got all of the programs and the SKUs in place to be able to support the channel the right way.
I think that's all the questions we have right now that have come in.
Okay, I'm going to try to get going here. We've got a lot of customer references. This is a great one that we did where they didn't know where their data was. They needed to have visibility. They needed to have simple charges. And they needed to sell to government organizations. So they were able to do that. And this is one where we started backing them up, and they actually now are becoming a channel partner for us. Another one, Beyond. I really want to thank John and Mike for the support, the nice plug earlier. This is one that came out of through kind of word of mouth from one of our road shows. We started talking with them back in October, did the training the following day, and we went live. And we've been doing their backups now for almost 6 months. So what's real interesting is that they perceived that they had about 900 gigabytes of data, which you can see they did, and we did. But remember the part about deduplication savings. We only store and you pay for what's deduplicated. So you can see that actually on the system, and this shows up in the portal and it shows up on our reports, that they're getting a deduplication savings of about 87% on this. So they're only paying for that 110 gigabytes of data, as opposed to what the total application size is from that standpoint. That's a real important piece. Now, I know that Mike and John were also using or selling a competitive product, which is a point solution. And we were able to get them moved over and be able to add them to the NEC UNIVERGE Blue portfolio, right? Where where the support that comes from the channel from Optus and for the discounting and the way that support is done is aggregated, and you guys are able to realize that from that standpoint. So again, rapid agility, no appliance, strong relationship with NEC. This was a real easy way to get this moved over. And as I mentioned, we are offering a not for resale, an incremental discount for that, and you can get that pricing from Optus. They were so pleased with it that we actually took it to one of their customers. And this is a customer that I believe has 2 stores. I'm not sure if they have an NEC phone system, but I know that I think there's about 12 employees. They've got about 4.2 terabytes of data. We needed to put down the different amounts for the licenses and the different types of licenses. In this instance here, they had one application which doesn't really store any data. It's just VM. That means that if there was a disaster, since we're backing it up, we can restore it. So it's being snapshotted. We also have the file They got 2 file servers. So we're backing up all the data in the file servers and making sure that that's got a retention. And this is being done right now for 30 days with, on incrementals. And then they had an application server. And in this instance, I'm pretty sure it was Active Directory. And what that allows them to do then is, to, again, for us to be able to restore that in the disaster recovery mode, as well as having it backed up. So we've got the entire landscape from them. And you can see what the deduplication ratio was, where they've got, they thought that it was going to be a lot higher, but when we went through the trial and ramped it up, considerably less than what they have to pay for. Okay. And then another one, Infinity Networks. I'd like to thank Dwayne and the team over at Infinity. They've been great on checking in with us and putting together a package solution, which was for one of their customers with UCAS. They were going forward with UCAS. They heard about our backup as a service offering. We quoted it. What's important to understand here is that 2 terabytes of data is likely going to be less. It's an estimate, just like everyone else saw. So it's important, though, in the initial size, we put that in as part of the quote so they know that. So you're always beating the number for them, which is a great selling proposition in moving forward, because it's going to be deduplication. Now, trying to move into the rest of the suite here to quickly wrap this up. This is what we call the customer ownership model. So previous NEC UNIVERGE Blue UCAS was done in a more of a partnership model where NEC had the contract with the customer. In this model for Blue backup and recovery, it's the ownership model. So the customer and the reseller owns the contract with the customer. You take the top line on it, you're doing the billing. You can add services if you choose. The customer can come to NEC for that support, as I had mentioned. But this follows the traditional SV channel model that's out there. The reseller will be doing the billing. Optus, we've worked with Optus's operations team to ensure that the billing is very smooth. And as I mentioned, we are offering the NFR, not for resale, for your own internal use, an additional 5% as well as a trial for this, just like we did with some of the other partners. So for a short period of time, we can try it, no obligation. And then if it works well and you feel good about it to see what it is, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to start you up. The configure to quote's pretty simple. It takes a little bit of work to get started, but we have an assessment questionnaire which is being put into, it's in Anytime right now, and it basically tells us what's their landscape, how many servers do they have, how many users, how much data, right? Everything that you need to kind of scope it to be able to get a quote like you saw in the 3 previous examples. So there's not a lot. It's got self-guiding. We are going to be putting this into Studio. We're working on getting it into Studio so it's fully automated. But in a lot of instances, as a form that you can email to the customer and they can fill it out, then you have something that's going back and forth, and it's pretty easy. So you can send that back to Optus. Optus will work with NEC, and we can turn that around very quickly into a quote or an assessment for the customer. So it's a pretty straightforward piece here where the reseller works with the customer to complete the questionnaire. You send it to Optus. NEC and Optus, we work together, and we create a template for you with the program description so they know what they're getting it. You guys take that, you adjust the pricing, deliver it to the customer. If you can, we actually put a signature on it for you to get the signature from the end user. If you get that, then you're going to send that as an executed form back to Optus. Optus in turns goes ahead and then sends that to us. At that time, what we do is we accept the contract, we assign a contract number, and we notify you that we accepted that contract. We then go ahead and contact the reseller and establish an implementation schedule with the end user. It takes not a lot of time. Typically, we need about a half hour to do that, and it's very, very seamless. Once that's complete and it's up, then we send an end user acceptance form to you, the reseller, and we ask that the end user confirm it. So that's the confirmation that the service is then now started and it's up and running. The reseller then basically confirms it or not, and if not, we will start the billing within 7 days of the notification. So it's a pretty straightforward way to go from quote to ordering on it. As far as support goes, we've got a number of support options here with underneath of the UnivergeBlue.com cloud services backup. We've got a website location specifically for that. You can see it here on the left. We've got a sales phone, option 1 for sales support. There's an email address also if that's needed. There's a phone support for technical support with option 6 people. It'll go right into live people that are answering the phone. And we also have a support email box from that standpoint in an instance. So all of these are live. Answer as NEC backup as a service and available for you for any of the issues that you need. So what's the next step here? First step is we'd like for you guys to contact your NEC account manager to get the backup and recover service appendix added to your agreement. Your existing reseller agreement needs to be amended. So there's a single page amendment, which our partners already, some of the ones that we showed you have already executed. It's done by e-signature, so it's very, very simple. We just simply need you to do that. Then what happens is we send you the reseller agreement and we send you the backup service appendix. The appendix describes the services, explains the services, it explains the service levels, everything that you were just asking about. It also goes into the terms related to the data storage. In other words, how long do we store the data for, right? What's our commitment to get the data back to the customer, right? And then also what's the responsibilities? What's the end user's responsibilities? What's the reseller's responsibilities? And what's NEC's responsibilities from that standpoint? So very clearly defined, very simple to go through from that standpoint. That's really the first thing that we would ask you to do coming out of today's call, is to contact your NEC account manager to add, and make the request to add backup and recover to your agreement. The second step then is to go to the NEC Anytime portal. In the Anytime portal, you can get access to all the sales assets. We've got a start here, flyer that's in that'll help you get started and step you through understanding the sales and marketing bulletin, the price book that's in place. The most important thing there also, the battle card. How do you position this? What do you need to be able to get your sales teams up in play to do that? We've got case studies, we've got blog posts and articles. There's an ebook to help in selling what the value of the data is worth. As I mentioned, the configuration guide, white papers, and there's also end user presentations that are in that are fully scripted, similar to this one, but end user focused from the reseller standpoint for you guys to go forward with, as well as some videos that you got for assets. That's really the second step, is to get familiar with that. The blue backup and the recover underneath in the Anytime portal underneath the cloud services. And then step 3, we would really like to see you guys execute a Zimpy campaign. We've packaged UNIVERGE Blue Backup and Recover campaign that's in the Zimpy under Anytime. You can go to the very bottom under the Zimpy channel. You get full support in there, and we've got a whole library of backup and recover email campaigns that you can use that are co-branded for you to be able to use with your customers and your logo. So that's really the third step that we see in trying to move this forward. But we think that this is a real important step for you to make your customers aware that Blue Backup and Recover is available from you to your customer base very easily. So that's really the 3 steps. And with that, I'm going to stop for a second and take it to the questions and see if we can wrap this up at the top of the hour.
So I have one. How much networking knowledge / experience must I have to successfully deploy?
Really very little. That's a good question. I mean, if you can get on the phone with on our support team, they can step you through authorizing the IP addresses so that we've got access at the right levels. So we've got it's not here to try to go through, read this playbook on the on-ramp. After a contract signed, we proactively, with a person on the phone, right? It's not like you're opening your laptop up or your server up to the internet, like a lot of these other systems are. We actually have someone on the phone that steps them through it, explains it to the customer. So it's really a white glove service on the unloading of the agents, those other pieces. That way we ensure we get everything done correctly and it's a good, positive experience. And we have a team, just as a side note, we have a team of people that are dedicated to going ahead and answering questions 24/7, answering the phone that way. And they're skilled in doing backup. That's all they do. They're not taking support calls for for firewalls or desktops or applications or something like that that are client-based, the only thing this team does is doing the backup and the service specifically for backup and recovery.
Okay, that's the only question we have that we haven't answered. Let's see if any other ones come in. Oh, here's one. How much I'm sorry. Is the service billed monthly?
Yes, it is. That's a really good question. So the NEC service is billed the first month. It's kind of interesting. The first month is a combination of monthly reoccurring and non-reoccurring charges. So one time, right? And let me jump back to show that to you. It might be a good thing to do on one of some of the examples that we showed previous here with some of our existing customers. So let's take this one here for Beyond Computers. So what they would be billed in the first month, it would be the estimate of how much data they have, right? So this 2750, that would be the one, plus what we believe would be the what they have for the license, the monthly reoccurring. So their first month is going to be 107.50, and then in the second month we're actually going to bill them on the variable. So there's 3 types of part numbers that we have: non-recurring, monthly reoccurring, and then also the variable. On our variable charges, we pick those up in the following month because we don't know what they're going to be in the first month. So that's the way it works. You'd be getting billed every month. You'll have the first month, you'd have one-time non-recurring, and you'd have monthly reoccurring, but you'd have no variable. And then in the next month, you would have the monthly reoccurring and the variable from the previous month. At the end of the contract term, there would be, if it was a 1-year contract, a 13th month, because it would be the catch-up for the variable. So that's the only item that would be. It also is important to understand that if we don't get the notification, we will automatically go into one-year renewals. So the 1 year, it will go into 1-year renewals if we're not notified by the customer from that standpoint. We're offering 1 year and 3-year contracts right now. That's what the default is from the platform.
Okay. Can this service be sold separately from the other UCaaS products?
Yes, it can. It can be sold. It's underneath of that's the reason why in the reseller agreement that we have with Optus's resellers, you have a portfolio of the addendums for the different types of services that we offer. Backup and recovery is a separate addendum specifically for that. And that's the thing that we would ask you to go ahead and get added as quickly as possible to your contracts as the next step.
Here's a question about a common objection. So my customers always say, well, I have Office 365. How would someone diffuse that question?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would ask them for compliance purposes, where's their audit trail for the backup? That's one. If the second thing I'd go to is I would say that are you keeping the data off premise, or is it just in Office 365? In other words, is that best practices on data is to have your data at least in 3 areas for a backup standpoint. When Office 365 is just really in one location. You're fully dependent upon what Microsoft is doing. The third thing is you have no confirmation that you're actually getting the backups. I mean, they have a copy of it, but you're really not getting a report that you did the backup. So your compliance people don't know that as a part of the overall service. And it sounds good because you got, okay, well, I have it in Office 365, but again, am I doing my incrementals, right? If I did get an Office 365, I can get hit with ransomware, right? So where do I roll back from? I don't have anything to roll back from. So there's things that while you think in Office 365 you have data there, it's not really a backup. You know, if you talk to somebody about a backup from that standpoint, they would really highly frown upon you, plus it would not be considered compliant. I know we're working with 2 school systems right now that this is the exact same case. It's going back and forth. Remember, a school system uses Office 365. they have to keep student data for 25 years. So they have to back up. Can't just keep it there. Maybe that's another good example.
When talking about providing on-site equipment, is that the responsibility of the end user, or is that provided by NEC and sent to the site? If NEC sends it, is that included in the price per month, or is it a one-time purchase?
Great question. It's up to the customer. If they have enough, let's put storage, and if they have enough existing infrastructure for us to just load the appliance software in their environment, we can do that. If they don't have the storage and they want the NEC server, what we do is we pre-configure it. We do through the interview session, we pre-configure it, we load it with the software, we send it to the customer, and the customer installs it, and then we remotely set it up from that standpoint. That's done very seamlessly. We've done this multiple times, and we've probably got, I'd say about 50 or 60 of these out there right now. The other question was then, out of that, how is the pricing worked out? So it's typically part of the monthly reoccurring, and we block it based off of the amount of storage. So it's in increments, I believe right now, of 5 terabyte increments. Because we have some people that just, they don't have the storage on-prem, and they need a box, and they don't have that much. So we'll strip it down maybe to 5 terabytes if we have to put the system on-prem, and then they pay a fixed monthly charge on it. They're going to get more than 5 terabytes, and they can use it any way they want to. But the key thing is that then we are taking it, and it is going off-prem, and then we're keeping all the copies on the NEC platform off-prem, and you're only paying for the deduplicated data that we store off-prem. If the customer wants to pay a one-time charge for it, we can work that. That would be a pricing exception. But we have had some situations where they want to buy the term of the contract or buy the appliance, and they want to own the appliance from that standpoint. That can be done through the contract also, but it's an exception. It's not the typical way that we do it.
Okay. What if the customer stops paying?
Good question. Yeah, you really want to see in the reseller agreement what our policies are, because we have their data. Sometimes that becomes a real issue. There's certain clause for the reseller for consideration to protect you. There's clauses in there for the termination on how that happens, and then what's NEC's liability to be able to keep the customer data. As I mentioned in the reseller agreement, the terms related to data storage are clearly called out. We just can't delete the data initially. We've got to take very proactive action to notify the end user of what's going on, make sure that we give you, the reseller, the tools to be able to support that, and then also to work with Optus to make sure that we keep you, the resellers, whole as much as possible. All of that we worked out very detailed in the reseller agreement that protects you from that standpoint.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we have. We're just a few minutes over 11, but I think that was a lot of information and good, valuable information. Does anybody have any more questions before we hop off? I have a...
So let me just say this, Rebecca. This is Mark again. We're going to be available. Our entire team is available to answer any questions, facilitate one-on-one conversations with NEC's Backup as a Service team. This has been a great introductory start. So why don't we go ahead and end here? And what I would encourage everyone on the call to do is reach out to your Optus reseller. Let's help you get signed up on your contract. This needs to be created as an addendum on your contract first. Let's teach you how to sell it. Let's kind of go through whatever you need to be successful and help you from there. So the Optus reseller team will kind of take it from here. We'll probably plan to schedule another webinar in 2 to 3 weeks. This is a continuation these next few months. But again, I'd like us to reiterate, this is a fantastic solution. Whether you're selling backup as a service today or this is new for your business, you should be considering it.
Mark, thank you very much for that endorsement and support. It's really been a pleasure working with you and your team. Anything you need from NEC, you let us know.
Yep, we will. We're going to work on this together. Thank you so much, Mike.
Very good, sir. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.